Hi, and welcome back to the Mike's On with College Football podcast. I'm your host, Mike Collins, and we're going to be reviewing week one of the college football season that happened last weekend. A lot of great games on the slate. I'm going to talk about a couple games that we didn't quite really get to on the weekend preview going into the weekend, but a couple games that happened Thursday and Friday that I just wanted to share about. West Virginia Pitt. This is called the Backyard Brawl. It's a very old rivalry game between two schools from different states, but they're very close together. This game hasn't been played since about 2007, where a 11-0 West Virginia team played at home against a pretty poor Pitt team and lost 9-7 or 13-9 at the to lose out on the hopes of going to a national title game. So it was great to see this game back in action. It was played at Pittsburgh Steelers Stadium, Acrisure Stadium, and two new quarterbacks for this game: Keaton Slovis for Pittsburgh and JT Daniels for West Virginia. Both, I thought, played very well. The crowd was amazing. This was an excellent showcase of the passion and fandom that is in college sports. This was the fullest game I've ever seen played in Pittsburgh's formerly, I'm going to call it Heinz Field, formerly Heinz Field of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pitt always plays their games there, and I've never seen it this full. So this was awesome to see. Pitt wins 38-31 on a pick six late in the game. West Virginia does drive late and gets within near the red zone and ends up just throwing a pick. Was kind of a little, as we talked about in our Pitt preview, I was worried about Pat Narduzzi, Pitt's head coach, being a little regressive in his offensive strategy, and they were under center a lot more than you would see last year, where they were predominantly in the shotgun, and they ran the ball a heavy amount and really compressed the game. It essentially worked out. I thought their defense was actually going to be a lot better than it was. West Virginia carved them up a pretty good bit in the passing game, had a great opening first drive that just stalled at midfield. A lot of false starts for West Virginia due to crowd noise really hampered them in consistent drives. But it was a great all-around atmosphere and a great way to start off week one of the college football season. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm a huge Wake Forest fan, as they're right behind us here, as well as that's their field, the poster above my head. They hosted Virginia Military Institute at home on Thursday night as well. This was a big game because both their leaders on offense and defense were out for the game. Sam Hartman on August 10th was diagnosed with a medical condition that forced him out of football play. He has been since cleared. He had essentially a blood clot in his clavicle vein, and it has now been removed, and he is healthy, and he will play this weekend at Vanderbilt. More on that later. However, they had to start first third-year redshirt freshman. Boy, this COVID stuff is getting nonsense. Third-year redshirt freshman Mitch Griffiths, who looked great with the offense, threw for almost 300 yards, made some absolutely ridiculous throws. Closing seconds of the second quarter, rolls right from the 25 and throws an absolute laser to the back corner over the shoulder to Taylor Morin for a touchdown. That was beautiful to see. Wake struggled in the red zone a little bit, kicking 3 field goals in the first half, but the Deacs, their defense was very, very firm, especially since they were missing the quarterback of the defense, Ryan Smenda, who was out due to a targeting penalty he suffered in the bowl game. The offense was smooth at times in the first half, came out of the tunnel in the second half. It thought VMI was going to roll over, and they did not. So that was a little concerning to see the Deacs flounder there in the third quarter. Dave Clawson, was head coach of the Deacs, was just the most angry I had ever seen him at a Wake Forest team, and it was great to see when your head coach is mad at a 44-10 win over VMI because you were so sloppy. I assume they'll get a lot of it sorted out. Obviously, Sam Hartman, their star quarterback, will return next week at Vanderbilt, and we'll talk about that in our weekend preview coming up tomorrow. So we've got our next one that I watched over the weekend. This was also on Thursday, Penn State, Purdue. Sean Clifford, quarterback of Penn State, sixth-year senior. He is what he is. He's a pretty inaccurate passer, doesn't have a lot of athleticism, played a really sloppy game until the last drive where he went 6 of 7 and went pop, 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 touchdown. Purdue looked awesome. They've also got a 6-year quarterback, but they really struggled to close the game out late. Purdue got the ball back twice in the last 7 minutes and only killed 2.5 minutes of clock combined. They could not / did not run the ball late, and it was very disappointing to see. Their defense got a pick 6 to pull them ahead 31-28 with about, it was like 6:50 on the clock. Offense gets the ball back and takes like 40 seconds off the clock. Defense forces a 3 and out. Offense gets the ball again and only does like, it's like 2 minutes off the clock. Just no screens, no swing passes. Like, they're just trying to attack over the middle. Also, there's a first round draft pick cornerback on Penn State's defense. I can't remember his name, but absolute stud of a dude. Aiden O'Connell, quarterback, was targeting him late, and he was breaking up passes left and right, almost had a pick. Like, just could have played a lot smarter down the stretch on offense. Thought Purdue was going to pull it out, but just really bungled the clock on offense late in the game there. So we're getting into Saturday and getting into our picks. We had NC State ECU. So we had 2 noon games in North Carolina with regional opponents against each other, and it was wild. I had both going simultaneously, and I'll tell you, it was nail biters through and through. So NC State ends up winning 21-10 with probably the worst game I've ever seen Devin Leary play, as well as showcased an NC State offensive line that was not up to snuff in terms of what NC State has put out consistently at offensive line. 2 goal line stands by ECU makes one was a 4th down stop and the other one was a turnover, both late in the game. NC State ends up struggling offensively for the most part, and ECU doesn't do great offensively either. I thought this was going to be a bit of a rock fighty game, and it was. The problem was ECU had scores late, with like 7 minutes left, it was like 2.5 minutes left, and tries to kick the extra point. They miss it. Holder no laces out, kick goes wide, and ECU has to kicks it off. I think they onside, and they get the ball back. They drive after forcing a punt from NC State, and drive down and have a 42-yard attempt for a game winner and miss. So kicker goes 0 for 2 in the last 3 minutes to lose ECU the game here. Very disgusting game for both sides. I don't think neither party walks away happy. However, we do go 2-0 because we picked ECU plus 12. They cover, and the under. Love to see it. The other noon game, UNC at App State, the exact opposite, the antithesis of what we see in Greenville in Boone. It was an absolute shootout like I thought it was going to be late. We had 62 combined points scored in the fourth quarter. App with a 40-burger in the fourth quarter. UNC looks terrible on defense. They did against FAMU and against App State, who lost 3 receivers, 3 to the NFL last season. Their quarterback, Chase Bryce, goes for 10.9 an attempt. There's a lot of questions on this UNC defense, but luckily they have Drake May, who throws for 300-plus yards and like 4 touchdowns. UNC blows 2 14-point leads. App blows 1. App scores with a $1:10 left on the clock. No, it was like 40 seconds left on the clock. They score, need a 2-point conversion to tie. Running back leaks out of the backfield, wide open. Chase Price throws it over his head. Ensuing onside kick to UNC. UNC recovers and runs it for a touchdown for whatever reason. Terrible coaching there. Fall on it, take a knee, and you're out of there. So now App gets the ball back with 30 seconds and like no timeouts. Pop, 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 touchdown. Now a 2-point conversion to tie the game as it was an 8-point deficit, and another failed 2-point conversion. Another onside kick. UNC finally falls on it, and we have a winner, 63-61. UNC can play offense. They can score the ball, and this was without Josh Downs the entire day. So Drake May looks amazing. He scrambles for the easy yardage and can complete downfield, finding everybody, spreads the ball around. And obviously UNC's running backs are pretty good too. Their big bugaboo is going to be on defense. I mean, I don't know what is going on there. They just seem not sound. But hey, we get the picks there. 2-0. We get UNC and the over. UNC was actually a dog in this one by 1.5 points. So get the win there. 2-0. Into the afternoon, we had Oregon and Georgia, and boy, did I just get this one absolutely wrong. I thought Oregon would come out and be a little tougher in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and God was I wrong. 49-3 Georgia. I did not think Georgia's offense was going to be that great this year. I knew their offensive line was strong, but I didn't think they had receiving talent. They do, and Stetson Bennett looks pretty damn good. For a former walk-on quarterback, Stetson Bennett is out there chucking the ball around, reading defenses, and making smart decisions. I think Georgia's an absolute monster. They are alive and well. Bo Nix for Oregon looked like the Bo Nix we saw at Auburn last year. Throws on their first drive into Georgia, second drive into Georgia territory. Throws a pick. And probably shouldn't have played the second half. I didn't really understand what Oregon was doing there. But a lot of questions for Oregon. And Georgia just looks mean, tough. Don't want to play the Dogs this year. We go 0-2 in that. UTEP, Oklahoma. This is another 3:30 game. Oklahoma gets out early and pretty much slams the door shut on UTEP. UTEP thankfully pulls Gavin out. Gavin Hardison, our lovely quarterback from UTEP with the rocket arm, pulls him out in the second half and puts in the backups. Liked what Dylan Gabriel was doing. He was 15 of 23 for 233 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Oklahoma's defense was great. 45-13. This game was over at halftime, and we get 2-0 on the picks. Cincinnati, Arkansas. This was a really interesting game. Cincinnati came out pretty sloppy and just a lot of lack of execution. And Arkansas kind of took a page out of Alabama's book from the playoffs last January and just really established the run early. We get into the second half, and it's 14-0 Arkansas at the half, and they're averaging 6 yards per rush. KJ Jefferson, he was efficient, their quarterback, 14 of 21 for 146 and 2 touchdowns. He also ran it 18 times for 130-some yards. That's a lot to be running your quarterback. I know he is a big part of the run game, and they lost a big piece of their offense in Treylon Burks to the NFL, but Arkansas really had a lot of chances to put Cincinnati away, and they really didn't. Cincinnati fought back in the second half and looked a lot better. However, this was, and I learned this later, Arkansas had three starters in the defensive backfield. 3 of their DBs go out, and it wasn't until then that Cincinnati started to really pass the ball more efficiently and start to get back into this game. But even then, 31-24 Arkansas, we do get 2-0 there. The over hits as well as Arkansas -6.5, so squeaking by there. But Cincinnati had the opportunity to tie it late and just throws an interception, and then Arkansas sits on the ball for the last 3-4 minutes. Going to the next one, Houston, UTSA. Man, was this a great one in San Antonio, and it was loud. It was super loud like I thought it was going to be. It was scoreless in the first quarter and goes into half pretty low scoring. The final score was in regulation was 24-24, so there wasn't as much shootoutiness as I thought there was going to be. Clayton Tune and Frank Harris for Clayton Tune for Houston and Frank Harris for UTSA, both of the quarterbacks both looked great. Frank Harris had a great command of the offense, running and passing, and Clayton Tune did as well. Big thing that happened in this game. There's 11 minutes left in the game, and Houston gets the ball at their own 5. They go on a did I have it written down here? A 10.5-minute drive, an 18-play, 77-yard, 10.5-minute drive to kick the go-ahead field goal with 23 seconds left. They chew up 2/3 of the fourth quarter to kick a field goal, and then UTSA goes 60 yards in 21 seconds to kick the game-tying field goal. First overtime, 2 field goals, and in the second overtime, 2 touchdowns with both two-point conversions attempted and made. And then in the third overtime, we get to this penalty kick, 2-point conversion scenario. Houston converts with Clayton Tune doing an absolute somersault into the end zone. That was pretty interesting to watch. And then UTSA has a tight end wide open in the end zone, and Frank Harris is just pressured in the pocket and overthrows it. I don't even think he sees him. It's kind of a boot action that Houston really encircles the pocket and doesn't allow him to get out, and he ends up just trying to chuck it up to the back corner. It goes out of bounds. Really great game played by both teams there. We go 2-0 though because we had UTSA +4. They lose by 2, so we get the win there, and the over hits 37-35 in triple overtime. A lot of fun. I'm actually going to be seeing Houston this year. I guess I'll talk more about it next week, but I'm doing a big out west trip with my father, and we're going to be seeing some football games. And Houston versus Memphis in Memphis is going to be one of them in about the second week of October. So more on them later. JMU and Middle Tennessee State. This was a game I turned on. I wanted to see JMU in their first year in FBS, and they won 44-7. MTSU is just terrible, and JMU looks like a pretty solid group of 5 team. I think they're going to give some team fits this year, and if you don't prep for JMU, the Dukes are going to bite you. We go 2-0 there because we picked JMU, and we picked the under. 44-7 was your total. 44-7 was your final. Total was over-under was 59, so we hit it there. Utah and UF. Utah goes to the Swamp to play Florida, and this was a really good game. Both teams back and forth, kind of running a lot of play action and trying to establish the run. Anthony Richardson for Florida is an absolute stud. I knew he was an athlete coming into the season, and by gosh, was he. He had a couple just crazy plays in this game. One at the goal line for a 2-point conversion. Run action fake, boots out the right side, and he's got 2 Utah defenders in his grill. Pump fake, spin, makes both Utah defenders miss. They fall on each other and zings it to a wide open guy in the back right corner of the end zone. It was gorgeous to watch. This guy is a complete athlete for UF. I think Billy Napier has a Cadillac at quarterback with that team. UF ends up intercepting Utah in the end zone with 4 seconds left after Florida goes up 29-26 with that 2-point conversion attempt. Utah drives down. They get all the way to the 5 with like 30 seconds left. They could have even ran the ball if they wanted to. And Cam Rising, who'd played pretty good most of the game, quarterback for Utah, just throws a pick. Tight end falls down out of a bunch formation, and linebacker makes a good read, and it's over. Great win for Billy Napier in his first season, first game for Florida. I mean, did not expect them to win there. We go 1-1. I'd picked Utah, and the under hits. Or does it? Under was 51.5. That is no. It went over. So we are 2-0 in that one, or 0-2 rather. Not so hot. Yeah, love to see what Florida did. I think they have a real shot going next week against Kentucky. They really surprised me with what they were able to bring on offense, as well as how stout their defense was. Again, Florida is all about their defensive line. It's pretty thin up front, and if they get injured, then they're going to be in trouble. So they're more of an attrition team to watch out for. Next game, Army at Coastal Carolina. This was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Coastal and Army run two kind of similar offenses. Army runs a traditional triple option, whereas Coastal runs a modern triple option variant where they incorporate a lot more of the RPO game into their triple option scheme, run pass option. So they throw the ball a little bit more. They end up holding the ball 38 minutes of possession time to Army's 28 and kind of out Army. Army throws a really bad interception late on a boot action that they're trying to just convert on I think it was a 3rd and 10, and they just end up chucking a pick up the sideline. It was not smart. You normally don't see bad decision making out of an Army team, but I thought Army would be able to handle Coastal in the trenches, but Army just doesn't have defensive backs, man. They're just unathletic at the defensive back position because Coastal was eaten all day in the passing game. Run game was solid. Army can kind of hem you in there, but if you have any sort of speed at receiver, it's over for Army. So anytime Army this year is playing anybody with a pulse in the receiver room, we're going to probably be on the other side of that one. We go 0-2 there as Coastal gets the win and the over hits. Going to the next one, we had Notre Dame and Ohio State. I didn't watch this one a ton. I really thought it was going to be a blowout, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Notre Dame goes into the halftime up 10-7. Ohio State was down two of their top 4 wide receivers. One was already going to miss the game, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba gets hurt. Not sure how, not sure what in the first quarter, and doesn't really ever return. But Notre Dame on defense was game. I mean, they were stopping the run, and they were just rallying to the ball. It was really more of Ohio State not executing their passing game in the first half. And after halftime, they flipped a switch defensively. Notre Dame did not score in the second half. That Jim Knowles defense for Ohio State figured it out and was diabolical in what they were doing. They were running. Last year, Ohio State was a lot more not soft, but very basic in their defensive scheme. They rarely did anything out of kind of a base set defense. And what I saw out of them was they were dropping defensive linemen into pass coverage. They were running double stunts up front. They were blitzing safeties, it was nuts. And quarterback for Notre Dame, this was his first start. He's a freshman, and not so hot for him. He was probably seeing some ghosts out there. Ohio State leans into the kind of ground and pound game that Notre Dame wanted to see here. Oh, lovely. That's an alarm. Ohio State really leans into the ground and pound game that Notre Dame established early and says, fine, if we're not going to be chucking the ball around than we will just mash you up front and be effective enough in the short passing game to win. Ohio State wins 21-10. We go 0-2 there. That is 3 straight 0-2 games. Not so awesome. Georgia State out South Carolina. This was a 7:30 kick. We said South Carolina is interesting to watch. We think they should be fun because they have Spencer Rattler this year. Big concerns coming out of this game. South Carolina returned like 100-plus starts on offensive line. They averaged 2.5 a carry against a Georgia State team that is not world beaters on defense. This was on 32 carries. Offense starts really slow for South Carolina. They came out in some really odd formations. On the first play of the game, their first possession, they came out in a spread formation for 4 wide receivers, and then about 3 plays later came out under center with 3 running backs in the backfield. So they're definitely trying everything down there in Columbia. Rattler kind of seemed a little inconsistent, to say the least. I think that is more of him trying to play hero ball. Hopefully that gets reined in as he kind of fits more into the offense, or the offense starts to get more of a footing. This game ends 35-14, and you think, wow, okay, South Carolina really handled them. It was 12-7 at the half, but South Carolina scores on 2 blocked punts in the second half to really blow this game open. So Beamer ball's back in Columbia, but offense is not, and that run game is very scary to be that bad this early in the season. We go 1-1 there. We had South Carolina 12.5, which hits, and the over, which does not, so we go 1-1. Getting into the nightcap, we had Boise State at Oregon State. And I came out here, and I said, Hank Bachmeier, quarterback for Boise State. He's going to be our guy. He looked great a couple seasons ago in his freshman year. He is a gamer. He battles. And he comes out, what does he do as a fourth-year junior? He throws 2 interceptions on the first 2 drives, and they were bad. They were just airmails over the middle, both of them. It was disgusting. He gets benched. Backup Talon Green, true freshman, actually leads Boise State on 2 successful drives, but that was in the second half. In the first half, Boise State has 3 turnovers and 4 punts and gets into an early 24-0 hole against an Oregon State team that likes to run the ball, and Oregon State did just that in the second half. This game goes final at 34-17. Over-under was 56. Total there is 51. So the under hits, but we do not guess the game correctly. Boise State, a lot of questions. For Boise State going forward. Might not be the bounce-back year we thought it was going to be. Last game of the night we had picks on was Kent State at Washington. Thought Kent State might come out and be Kent State flash fast. And they weren't. They got physically beaten up front. They were not able to score quickly and force Washington to try to keep pace. And Washington is able to put up points now. They look completely transitioned on offense. They win 45-20 over Kent State. The over hits, we had Kent State plus 23 in the under. God, just Kent State, if they had just given us a field goal, we could have gotten this. So we go 0-2 that one. A couple that I had taken some notes on, but we didn't have picks on just to talk about. Florida State and LSU played in New Orleans on Sunday night, and it was awesome. One of the best games of the weekend. Florida State wins 24-23 on a blocked extra point with zeros on the clock. The atmosphere was absolutely awesome in New Orleans. Florida State traveled really well. Obviously, LSU did too, and it was just very loud for both sides. When either team had the ball on offense, you could really hear the crowd noise, which was awesome. Jordan Travis for Florida State looked great. He kept the ball. He did not throw the ball into bad situations. He kept control of the offense. used his legs, used his arm, and the offense hummed along decently with pause for water. Worked really well even with two starting caliber offensive linemen down. Their defensive line for Florida State, holy crap, they're here to play. They ain't screwing around on the defensive line, even though they're reloading with two NFL caliber players gone from last year. Incoming transfer Jared Verse, real deal. 6'4", 250-pound speed rusher off the edge. He gets a sack, 4 tackles, and blocks a field goal. The dude can flat out play. Florida State really needed this win from a program building perspective, from a fundraising perspective. Man, they just haven't had like a signature win. I mean, they beat Miami last year, but Miami wasn't anything to talk about. They fired their head coach. So this was a big opening statement SEC win for Florida State. As for LSU, huge questions in the offensive passing game. Jaden Daniels, their quarterback transfer from Arizona State, looked really just snap, 1, 2, run. I mean, the dude was just, if option 1 was there, we might even get to option 2. He was just taking off. And he did. He had like 140 some yards on the ground, but like that's sustainable. People are going to start spying and hem that in. And even when he did throw the ball, it wasn't great, especially deep. They also had 2 muff punts in special teams and a blocked field goal and the game-sealing blocked extra point. So special teams was a complete disaster for LSU. A lot of things to clean up for Brian Kelly in his first year there at LSU. Thought they were going to come out a lot better than they did. I did not expect this LSU team to be this just sloppy, completely sloppy all over the place. Last game I wanted to bring up, Louisville at Syracuse. We talked in the ACC preview about how Louisville brought back a ton on the offensive line, a 6th-year quarterback, and a bunch of skill talent, as well as a decent defense. They're primed to be, I think they were projected top 3 of the ACC Atlantic. They came out and went over to Syracuse, New York, played in the Carrier Dome, and put up 7 points in 60 minutes of football. 31-7 Syracuse. Now, as wrong as I was about Louisville, I am so happy I was correct about Syracuse. Kind of hedged my bets. I said they were going to be fun, but maybe the record wasn't going to be there. And I said Garrett Schrader really needed to take that next step in his passing game. Dude he had like 70% completion percentage. He had about 100 on the ground, 275 in the air. I mean, the guy looked awesome. And in the RPO game with him and Sean Tucker, the running back, Louisville just had its head spinning on defense. And the Syracuse defense, which lost their entire defensive line, looked completely retooled and rebuilt. Didn't understand really how Louisville was playing that bad other than, and you hate to speculate on it, is there something internal going on with the message being related to the players in how to play or execute or whatever? But 31-7 on opening weekend is absolutely deplorable against a Syracuse team that maybe Syracuse is good now. Are they decent? I don't know. Tough. It's going to be real tough sledding for Louisville next week. They play UCF, Central Florida, who has another great running quarterback, probably the greatest pure running quarterback in FBS football, John Reese Plumlee, with a Gus Malzahn offense that loves to incorporate the quarterback run. So Louisville better wake up because it's not going to get any easier. And yay, Syracuse! They look decent. They did lose a couple defensive starters to injury, but they look a lot. They look completely refreshed and refurbished on offense and defense. Way to go, Dino Babers. We might see some life in Syracuse yet. That's the weekend review, guys. That is week 1 of college football. So I was going to give you my picks here, and we had to make some adjustments. One went to 0-2, so that means that goes to 14-12, 12-14, and 1-1. So we end up going 13-13 on the week. which fine, 500. And I never totaled week 0. We went 10, 7, and 1. So in the 2 weeks that we have week 0 and week 1, we are 23, 20, and 1. We got a push in the Illinois-Wyoming game in the week 0. So we're doing okay. I'd like to improve that a little bit. I think I can definitely get better on picks. If you guys are using these to actually gamble on, I'm sorry, but we will do better. Obviously, these aren't – when I pick these games, I'm picking games that I think will be interesting to view and will be good games to watch. I'm not always picking picks that are – like a good edge gambling wise. I'm picking the game results I think will happen in this good game I think you'll watch, but I'm not being meticulous and out there trying to find value in games where, I mean, if I wanted to, I probably would be able to, but that's not the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to showcase, hey, these are some games you might want to watch over the weekend, and they're very interesting, and this is what I predict might happen, and we see what we get. If you guys are interested in more kind of gambling content, please let me know. I would love to dive in deeper on that. For now, though, this has been the Mike's On with College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Collins. Make sure to like and subscribe. That really helps me in the algorithms. Comment down below questions or anything you want to talk about, and we'll see you next time.